Hey, what's up everyone, Ricky here, and today I want to talk about lenses. It's still hard with all these amazing lenses coming out every single year, and if you're indecisive like me, it's just super overwhelming. So today I got my hands on 6 lenses. I'm gonna rank them and pretty much suggest like an overall winner of what I would buy first if I was starting over. So let's get right into it. It's very important for me to mention that I'm on a Sony full frame system because this is a Sony a7C. All this means is that a 55mm for a full frame, like this lens right here, doesn't look the same on a smaller cropped sensor. So I'm gonna include a link down below to a calculator / converter where it tells you what the equivalent focal length would be on those lenses. But overall, I just thought I'd mention which system I have so that you can think of the system that you have and pretty much apply everything that I mentioned in this video to your system. So now let's talk about lenses because I have prime lenses and I have zoom lenses. The only difference is that this has a fixed focal length. A zoom lens has a variable focal length where it can be wider, but then it zooms in to a more, narrowed down focal length. Having a fixed focal length, aka a prime lens, is very useful because it forces you to move around in your scene instead of just relying on like, oh, instead of taking steps forward, I'm just gonna zoom in. But on the other hand, having a zoom lens is obviously very flexible. If you can't get closer physically to your subject, you can just zoom in and just play around with that as well. Now, my point number 2 on lenses is that you have native lenses, for example, a Sony lens for a Sony camera, or third-party lenses like this Tamron, which is built for Sony systems. So the thing is with this Sony lens is that price tag can be higher just because it's the same manufacturer, which means that the autofocus speed is optimized and all of those factors, since it's built by the same company, it's gonna fit like a glove, right? But when it comes to third-party lenses like this Tamron, it's gonna usually be cheaper than the native lenses. And honestly, sometimes there's not that many drawbacks because the autofocus speed can still be pretty fast, and the build quality, sometimes it's not metal. So for example, this is more of a metal aluminum design and this Tamron is more of a plastic, but that's kind of a plus for me because I like lenses that are lighter and that don't sacrifice on quality. Now let's talk about every single one of these 6 lenses, starting off with the widest and working our way towards the most narrowest. So this tank, it's an insane lens. It's the 12-24 G Master f2.8 by Sony. Now the thing is, this is an insanely large and heavy lens, but the reason is because they made it an f2.8 because Sony has another 12-24 lens, but that one is an f4. So we need to know is that zoom lenses have more moving parts. So it's harder to increase the aperture speed on these zoom lenses, which is why this lens is like double the price of the other. Even if it's very expensive, if you need this for astrophotography or for indoor shots of real estate, it's gonna pay off because that increased aperture speed is gonna make it so that you have less grain and you can work with a little bit less light versus the f4. So what I'm doing now is I'm gonna be putting every single one of these lenses on this camera right here. Here we're at 12mm, super wide. And here is 24. So I'm just gonna be showing you every single time I talk about each lens. I'm gonna be putting it on the a7C so you guys can visualize how wide it goes. Next up is a third-party lens by Tamron for the Sony system. And this is also a wide-angle zoom lens. It's a 17-28. It's like a fourth of the weight of the 12-24. So I love this lens. It's plastic, but still I enjoy having plastic if it means it's going to be lighter. So the setup overall is going to be super run and gun. So again, 17-28. So this is the widest at 17-28. Now next up is our first prime lens. This is the 20mm f1.8 lens, but let's put it on the Sony a7C and see the difference. The focal length fits into the range of this Tamron because remember, this is a 17-28 and this one's a 20. You're probably not gonna notice that much of a difference because it's gonna pretty much look the same. But again, this one, I can't zoom in and out because it's stuck at 20mm. Next up is another Tamron lens. Now this one is probably the most versatile because the range is 28-75. So usually when you have a standard kit lens, this is the range that it covers. Pretty wide at 28, decently wide, but then it zooms in all the way to 75 to capture stuff that is farther away. And this is an f2.8. This one is a 28 all the way to 75. So as you can see, it's a very, very useful range. Now it's my most nostalgic lens that I own because again, this one is one of the first ones that I got, or the very first one. It's super small. This is the prime lens again. And this one also fits into the range of the one that we just covered because this is a 55mm f1.8 lens. It's such a tiny lens, but even if it's like super old, but still it works perfectly. The sharpness is amazing. So you want to look out for lenses and like how sharp they are. You can't move it around, but it just blows out the background at f1.8. It's small. It's pricey at around $900 retail, but since it's such an old lens, I'm pretty sure you can find some used ones for like 500 bucks. And the last one that I have is this big boy 70-180 by Tamron, which completes the trifecta because this one is the range that comes after the middle Tamron that I just showed before. So this is the 28-75, and again I have the wider one, so it goes in order, and this one is half of the price of something that would be coming from Sony. Even though Sony usually goes all the way to 200mm, so even more zoomed in, I would rather save half, which is probably like $1,000, and get this one, which is still lighter because the other Sony that reaches all the way to 200 and is also an f2.8, it's super heavy. Like everyone loves it, but it's very, very heavy. But this one, again, it's lighter, it's cheaper, and overall super sharp. The background is super blurry. Struggle bus. Here is 70, and then look how much I can zoom in. Boom. So again, it's super useful to have the whole range of wide angle Tamron all the way to the 180mm and just capture things that are super far away. Now I'm gonna briefly talk about which ones I would buy if I didn't own any of them. And I'm gonna be thinking of value and also the focal length and how useful the lens is. So number one, I'm gonna go with the wide angle Tamron 17-28. This isn't a prime, so you have a little range to work with, right? So 17 is a very wide angle, so you could be pointing the camera at yourself or taking indoor photos where you can capture a lot of the room. A lower number indicates a wider angle, which I didn't know, which is why the 55mm was my first lens. I had no idea about focal lengths or anything. Number two, I'm gonna have to go with Tamron again. This comes right after the wide angle zoom lens because it goes from 28-75. So in terms of how useful the lenses are, having a wide angle zoom and then the standard middle of the road, like 28-75 range, it's gonna be a perfect, I mean, I can just have these lenses, sell all of these other ones and probably be fine 90% of the time. Where should I put them? Right here. My third option, I'm gonna go with the 55mm, which is actually, again, the first one that I bought. It's one of the smallest lenses out there, but also still has an f1.8. It's perfect for portraits and just street photography as well. It has enough range to capture a lot of moments that are a little bit farther away, but it's pretty discreet. It's not gonna be like this one or this one where it's just a gigantic thing that people are gonna notice. Number four, I'm gonna have to go with the other small one, which is the 20mm lens. It's such a useful thing to have a smaller lens. And this is an f1.8, so it's a fast aperture. Number five. This is a tough one, but I think I have to go with this one just because the price is so good. The 70-180 by Tamron. It overall completes the set and allows you to not have to step way forward to capture, you know, the moment or your subject or whatever. So the compression is amazing too. If you think about it, anything past 85mm, it really compresses your image and it allows for separation of the background and your subject. And now the very last one, f2.8 12-24, just because it's such an expensive lens. I think it was lens of the year for 2020. So it's an amazing lens, but if you're gonna ask me, okay, what should you buy? This one, 17-28 or 12-24, I'm probably gonna say this one just because you're saving a ton of money. And if you really need this one, you'll know because you'll know you'll be able to get your money back when it comes to jobs and photo shoots and everything like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is it, guys. I really hope you guys use this video as a guide. If you have a few lenses and are thinking of expanding your little collection, or if you're just starting, just because it can be very confusing. But if you have any more questions, just shoot me a message and I'll for sure reply. But also remember to subscribe to the channel just because there's gonna be more videos coming out soon. Thanks for watching this one, guys. My name's Ricky and I'll see you guys in the next one.